Call me Shooter Lewis. I was out here. I used to be into noir movies. It was Night Moves. It was the best one. No, you gotta get that liquor off your breath, Richard, and turn up to these shows and pick good films.
Welcome to our new arc on Foreplay. It is the very vague sports arc. Ooh. Now, this obviously could have been 4 of a million movies, but we have decided that we are going to be starting with Hoosiers, continuing with Field of Dreams. Third, we're going to watch Rudy. And then fourth and final, we will do The Hustler, which is a movie about pool with Paul Newman, but all-time classic from the 1960s. Yep. So maybe not, that last one may not be the kind of sports movie you guys were thinking about. There's obviously a lot of these sports movies, far too many to do in just one arc. So we probably will come back to sports.
Also,
sports too.
Monte, they all do have the commonality of we've all picked feel-good movies. Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know if we had to do that. Well, I was thinking about this last night while I was sat there, getting ready for the episode.
I mean, describing The Hustler as a feel-good movie might be a bit of a stretch, but I'm with you on the others, Richard. It's a bit dark.
It's good. It's good by the end.
Yeah, true.
It's a pretty dark there in the middle, though.
I know. Yeah, true.
Yeah. But sometimes you have to be exposed to the darkness to truly appreciate the light. Okay. Said Bane to Batman. But anyway, no, I mean, for me, I was thinking about this, and I think it's like. One of the reasons why the sports movie will always endure, no matter how formulaic they actually are, is it's the same reason I got into sports writing and why I'm involved in esports. It is the ultimate arena to kind of safely explore tragic and achievement, all these elements of the human story. It's like. If you think about what sports just actually is, it's like a dude says, right, I'm going to be the best at this, and no one else does that. And then he, by de facto, is the best at that. And then another guy goes, I reckon I could beat you at that. And then they try and beat you at that. And then they do. And then generationally throughout history, someone's always gone, I'll be better than that last guy. And so it's got ties to history. It's got ties to the human story. It takes spirit and resolution. Look, we've all been there.
Some would say the triumph of the human spirit, Richard.
The triumph of the human spirit, right? Which they think about like we've all been there at 4 a.m, where it's we're watching TikTok shorts or whatever before we go to sleep, and you'll just come across I don't give a fuck that Eddie Hall lifted those plates, but when you hear him give a speech about how to him in that moment to push himself that far, he had to imagine he was lifting a car off his kids. Fucking, and he's got a nosebleed there. You're like, holy shit! This is fantastic. I love this. You get a little man tear in your eye. It's great for catharsis. It's just these are the types of stories I wanted to tell about esports. I wanted Flush to say when I installed those cheats, I imagined those cheats were on top of my kids. Yeah. And that's why he did it. So obviously Flusher did not install cheats. That's just a deep.
Yeah, you could no. When he lifted his mouse, he just imagined he was lifting it off his dying kids. Exactly. He was like, "Save little Johan, save him."
But anyway, hopefully, he doesn't have a kid called Johan. That would be weird. We
really,
don't know. We have no frame of reference. But anyway, the point being, those are the types of stories I wanted to tell. And watching, in particular, this movie. Hoosiers, it reminded me of that. That there are those underdog stories that occur throughout sports history that are just really nice to reflect on.
No, by the way, that's even one thing I want to say at the outset. One of the things about this film is, what's bizarre is, this is one of those films I only saw once, and it was probably 25 or 30 years ago or something. So I actually didn't remember, I think I confused some of the plot. So I actually didn't realize how straightforward this film is. It's actually very simple filmmaking. The story, by the way, one thing I think that people might find very refreshing is, first of all, like Richard says, this is basically almost the ultimate archetypal example of the plucky underdogs come together and overcome the small town against it's
Story
all
of
all of it.
redemption.
Like essentially, if you had to do like the hackneyed like film student, yes, it is a film about second chances and believing in people and not letting your past define you and your failures and overcoming them. Yeah, all that shit.
It's the cranky old man's redemption arc and the loner who lost all family ties, who finds connections through sports. They just jam it
basically,
all.
Monty, in short, if I can change, then you can change, and then we can all change, and then.
But what you're missing is actually, and this is why this has always been an interesting film to me, and it's probably a sports movie I've watched, dozens of times down the year. It's a sports movie where it doesn't. There's barely any characterization.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
What it is about the connective tissue that sports can provide to a community. And that is why, in the moment of triumph, I'm skipping right to the end, by the way, guys. In the moment of triumph, when they win, it immediately cuts to a gym with a kid in it, the next generation of Hoosiers
inspired.
throwing a basketball up, and then it goes on to the wall, and you see the black and white photograph of the championship winning team Gene Hackman coached. And so that right there is that you don't even get the jubilation, because what it is about, ultimately, this movie, is how sports is that inspirational aspect for communities. That when you grow up in a podunk town in fucking America, you can always compare yourself to that group.
And it also connects, it's the through line between generations, which is also the theme of one of the themes of Field of Dreams, which is the second movie, right, on our list here. So,
correct.
Because there is something eternal about sports, which I think is so interesting.
Duncan could probably identify with this. When I was growing up, again, the irony is, thinking about it, this is a better anecdote for the Field of Dreams episode, but we'll drop it here as well. Why not? Much like Hoosiers, let's cram everything in. I wasn't into sports as a kid. I was a reader. I was an indoors kid. I couldn't. On the council estate I grew up on, if you went outside, you just got your head smashed in, so you stayed in. It was just.
If you go and play football, your football just gets taken and you get beaten up. That's it. That's the end of the game.
Correct. Yeah. So sports wasn't very interesting to me through that lens. Yeah. But when my stepdad entered into my life, we didn't have a great relationship.
It's the ultimate thing to bond over, isn't it?
How do we connect? Well, we can't talk about the emotional shit. He can't go, I'm fucking your mum now. All right, that's wicked. Yeah, love that. Right? We can't have that. We can't talk about any of that stuff. What we can talk about, which is a completely safe arena. Did you see Middlesbrough on the weekend? I don't know about that guy. And blah, blah. And so you create this area where it was like suddenly it was very important for me to know about football. And so probably at about...
It becomes the language to talk to men in your life in that sense,
Yeah, probably at 8 years old, that was when I kind of got into sports as a means to be able to communicate as a child with an adult that was only in my life by happenstance. And so, yes, for many men, it is that through line for generations. It is that, particularly as attitudes change over time. Like men, I can't talk about feelings, right? A lot of guys feel that way. You don't want to talk about feelings with your kids. You never want to appear weak around your kid. You never want to complain around your kid about what a shitty day you've had at work, because you are ostensibly doing it for them, and you understand you would essentially be like laundering some form of guilt, and so a lot of men, I mean, like our fathers, they tanked dog shit lives just on the just head on.
Yeah.
My life is shit, and one of their little bits of enjoyment was this whatever sport they were into. And so a lot of times, the only time you ever saw your father or stepfather happy was sports. Like the rest of the time, he was just fucking miserable, drinking in the dark or whatever, like haunted by the horrifying reality of the working man's life. Sports was that's why we have such fond memories. Not only could we bond with our father, but it was like one of the rare sources of pleasure for all of our dads. I mean, that's just
I think that's the grim way to put it, Richard. You know what I mean?
By the way, I'll give you a positive thing. I would even say, I often tell people a real piece of advice I have, because I actually think now more than ever this can help, is actually, if you are someone, like obviously in the modern day, if you're super into politics, there's no chance you're going to be able to talk to your parents because they're a different generation and people have fucking accelerated all the political fucking spectrum, haven't they? So they've ruined everything. So everyone's too extreme. So since those topics will be incredibly divisive, as an actual piece of advice to people, I would say if you want to have a relationship with your older male relatives, pick the sport they are into that you are also vaguely interested in and just start following it. Because as Richard says, instantly you can now have a million conversations. It starts with, what happened on the weekend? What do you think of them signing this player? What's going on with the rivals and stuff? The joke becomes, and this is actually the point we can make about this movie to tie it back in a way, once you actually get into it with them, you are talking about all those things, Richard, like their love of that team, is there like dreams for the future, or what it used to be like in the tradition, and all these things they can't actually express about their lives. And so that's why I actually was going to say at the beginning, that's why I actually think this film will be really refreshing for people who are sick of every property being filled with like secret politics or like subversive elements, or like none of that. You thought it was going to be a happy ending, well then it has to be a bad ending. No, what's great about this film is
this is the most earnest movie.
But you can also, here's the thing, it telegraphs everything. You can see everything coming down the line. For 3 miles, it's going to be this one, everything. But it just does it well. It just does it really, really well. And at the end, you don't begrudge that it's cliched, because you go, cliches are good for a reason when you do them right. They're cliched if you do it badly. This is an awesome example of a really good turnaround. Because, by the way, the same exact topic, if you want to discuss this topic, the whole movie basically, obviously explicitly with that like Dennis Hopper character, is about the fact that these people need sports, or at least the dream of being good in sports, as a purpose to their life. Without it, they have no meaning. They are in a dead-end town. Their schools are irrelevant. They have no good players there. It's all bureaucracy. It's everything, by the way, that's everyone's life. But the point is, this is a way you find something that is meaning.
Yep.
Go on, Monty.
Well, I was just going to say, this is also, just as a quick aside, the continuation of our Hackman arc that we just ended.
He's great in it.
Also,
we
did a really good Gene
a
Hackman
fifth
film.
Gene Hackman movie where he is excellent in it as well.
I think it's actually one of his
but
best.
But also, I mean, you could say that.
Very understated until the end. Very good.
This is why I don't care about spoilers in any context at any time, is because every story's already been told a million times. So the only thing that really matters is how it's presented. And even though I would say that there are many, basically every aspect of Hoosiers is cliched, period. Right?
Yes.
And this happens a lot in sports movies. But the execution of what happens in Hoosiers is interesting because of the fabric in which Hoosiers is woven, which is this small town America. You get a really good sense of the relationships within the town and the sport's wider importance to the people. And the reason why this story is being told is because this is a story where nothing happens in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And this story about these high school boys winning this title, a state title in the 1950s, is now going to be told for the next 100 years in this town.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, one of the things I love about the way the film is presented as well, and it's really interesting from a structural viewpoint, is essentially it's just a tasting menu of every feel-good storyline you could cram into a sports movie.
It's so funny.
And they just serve them up one after another. Like, you just a Michelin star restaurant, and he takes it off, and all the dry ice comes up, and this is the alcoholic father redemption arc. Oh, that's delicious. I love that. And what's this? Oh, Gene Hackman learns to trust his players. It's so...
The runt kid. Believe it or not, Richard, in the end, it's actually the runt kid you all thought had let you down. That sort of is the one that's the hero and lifts you up.
Exactly. And here's the tiny boy, too small and withered to play basketball, making free throws to keep them in the series. Oh, it is impossible to hate this movie. Like,
here's the star player saying, "Give me the ball, I'll make the shot." Who follows through and lives up to his potential. Here's Gene Hackman's character. He used to be this angry coach who lost his job, and then he had to be fired and exiled from the sport.
Beat up his star player.
Beat up his star player whom he loved, and he doesn't know. He just has anger issues. And what did he do during that time? Remember that this film is supposed to take place in 1950. 1951.
So it's something like 51, maybe.
1951.
Early 50s.
And by the way, he says, I was literally in the military for the last 10 years. I wonder what happened in those last 10 years. Can anybody remember what happened between 41 and 51? Maybe Gene Hackman's had a bad time. I don't know. During that time period in the military.
But also, what's so great about this movie is that, right, you're waiting for the scene where he starts crying and having PTSD and going, "And we had to kill him. We killed him." You're waiting for that. No, that's not happening in this film. That's another film. There is nothing dark or cynical.
Yes.
Like it's just overcoming like life's problems as they are presented to you, and it's just great. As I said, I even low key.
Oh, we even forgot the orphan boy with the inexplicable skills, right?
Yeah. I genuinely think as well. I think Dennis Hopper might even steal this picture.
It's pretty
from
good,
everyone
yeah.
else in it.
It's pretty good.
I like when Dennis Hopper is talking proud. He's sobered up finally, because it is sort of inadvertently hilarious that like when he goes to the dry it out clinic, which is just like a fucking hospital, he's just like, "Oh God, I'm so thirsty, I'm so cold." We've all been there, mate. Like we've all had some rough ones when you need to tie one on just to get through the day. I'm so cold.
Nurse, I'm so thirsty. I'm so sorry, Coach.
The nurse is just mopping alcoholic flop sweat off his face. But it sets up the next scene. You see him perfectly, because he's just like talking proudly about his son. His son comes and goes, "Listen, Dad, I'm going to win the game and make you proud
I'm so
of me."
proud of you.
By the way, in those moments, again, that would
dude.
normally veer into
Love
cliche, like when he goes like, "I love you, Dad," like,
I love you, Dad. I gotta get back.
but it isn't. You actually,
No, it's just earnest.
as long as you
It's just
engage with
earnest.
the film, you won't actually have all those like intrusive thoughts. You'll just enjoy it. Like even the scene at the end where he tells his players before they play, like, "I love you guys," like that doesn't come across as maudlin or saccharine, and trying to play on my heart. That just comes across as genuine. Like that's actually really good.
The thing is, obviously now in a modern sports movie, right? And this is why, by the way, I think like, things like Coach Carter and Remember the Titans, they're essentially recycling Hoosiers, right? All of those movies. But obviously in like a modern sports movie, there would have to be some insane sinister element.
Yeah,
like
sure.
Gene Hackman would go, "I love you guys." And then he would just go into the room and shoot himself in the head or something. Like, it would have to be, it would have
He
to
just
be
walk
like
into the next room and just take a bunch of cocaine,
Yeah. "I love you guys."
Or just get Sandusky or something,
Exactly.
fucking darkness at the end. The end screen is just like, and he was found to have assaulted 3 of the players in private. Like,
Exactly.
He's now serving out his time in Rikers Island. Like
He beat 3 Hoosiers to death.
I know. But the little town chose to remember that one little championship they got.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the little town of Hickory was destroyed in a fire.
And even worse, that kid who made the free throws got it the worst at the end. He was wailing on him as the police dragged him
Little
away.
Timmy Free Throw died of polio. No, there's none of that. There's none of that. Which is what, as I said, like there's probably. There will be
All right, I'll
some
tell you
people
what.
that
Should
are-
we do this? I do have some grievances with this film, so let's get them out the
No!
way because it's such an enjoyable film.
Do not redeem the grievances.
I did really enjoy the rest of the film, but there is one section in this film, Monty, I don't enjoy, which is
what's that?
the level of contrivance on the first basketball game is fucking absurd. So, okay, here we go. Let me just give you the rundown. Because after this, we're going to enjoy the rest of the movie. The movie, by the way, is a really good film. It's actually an amazing Gene Hackman film. And it actually is genuinely really good. But there's just no need for this contrivance. Whoever wrote the script, you overcooked with this part. So first of all, right, in his first ever game, they fuck up a few of the initial plays. That guy turns to him, like at the cop or whatever, and goes, "Is that what you call coaching?" He's had like 4 possessions in like the whole fucking career as a coach.
I know.
Then right, literally people from the crowd are just shouting to his players to shoot when they're completely guarded with no play on whatsoever. Like,
I know.
and acting like he
Shoot, you
doesn't know,
pussy!
acting like he doesn't know basketball because he's not allowing them to just shoot for no reason, like Steph Curry fucking from the logo or whatever.
Shoot the ball, right? Catch some picks. What's wrong with you?
whatever. Then also, so that's already absurd. Then this ridiculous contrivance. Listen, I understand script writing, Richard. I understand the script writer was like, but how am I going to show that actually at the pro level, because obviously he was like at a Division 1 school or something, how are we going to show that he has like a different perspective on basketball? It's different. You have to pass 4 times no matter what.
Remember what we worked on in practice, all right? I want to see it on the court. How many times are we going to pass before we shoot? 4. How many? 4. 4!
Like, that is such an absurd contrivance. Because in that scenario, Richard, I'm supposed to identify with him, that they should give him a chance to let his system play out, and that these, like, hicks are all just idiots and ignorant. That's a totally reasonable point to make. The idea you're not ever allowed to shoot, even if you're wide open, is absurd. And then also, lastly, I'll just throw this in there, the notion that because you're punishing your player because he took a shot without doing the 4 passes, that when you foul out and the ref goes, you must insert a player, you can just go, nah, just play 4v5.
Coach, need one more. My team's on the floor.
What were you trying to do?
Even though, look, the rest of the film I fuck with, this isn't even something that brings down the rest of the film. It's just
Really?
so necessary. That part is so... Consider the rest of the film is masterfully written. That is so contrived a scene.
I mean, the entire idea that they would be questioning him so heavily is contrived, because surely when they hired him... Surely when they hired him, the principal would say something like, hey, we're getting this new basketball coach. Turns out, like, you could literally just say this. He was in the military fighting World War II. But before that, he won a New York State championship as a coach. And by the way, it was hard to get the information. Remember, the way that they got the information that he was banned and blacklisted was by going to a library and looking up microfilm records from newspapers in New York.
The least plausible part of the film is the idea that in small towns, when you could get a shit-hot coach to coach your team up, that you'd all go, let's find out about his personal background. It's the opposite. It's the opposite, you idiots. That's
right.
Exactly
So surely the principal would have said something about this and could have created some sort of plausible story, and it would have been easy to figure out that he was the coach of this team, and harder to figure out that he was later like banned or whatever.
I have to ask you boys about. You probably didn't think about it, but I'm going to make you think about it now. The other thing is as well. Remember, this is set in the 50s, Monte. Why is he just wearing Fonzie from Happy Days leather jacket? Why?
It's the 50s.
Hey, listen, you arrive at your job in a suit. Hey, I'm a little bit of an outsider, if you ask me. He may as well have rode up on a Harley Davidson, Richard. Like, what is this? Listen, I fuck with it. The rest of the film, I love it. But those are my few.
I mean, obviously, it's a very rural town. And they're all wearing, like, flannel shirts.
Over everything, overalls, all the usual
overalls, dungarees, They're all dressed like that. So, you create a contrast, which is to show he is a worldly man. He's been outside. He's from the big city.
He's from the coast.
Yeah,
I also appreciate that he does the cliche thing where if you actually go back and rewatch the beginning of the film, listen, this is going to be a point of realization, Richard. I did this myself in the industry and maybe it was a mistake. You don't have to just tell everyone the first time you meet them to sort of fuck off, which is basically what he does to every person. Like that guy who wants him fired. Yeah, that's because that guy was trying to help him like transition in and he's sort of like, you just get the fuck out and actually I don't need you and shove it up your ass. Like, you're making these enemies, mate. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just their small town bigotry and they don't like outsiders. Like, you basically told everyone to shove it up their ass for the first 20 minutes.
First of all, let's be real friendly here, okay? My name is Norm. Secondly, your coaching days are over.
Like, listen, I fuck with that, Richard. I've done that myself, but I can tell you it does make life harder.
There is a wonderful bit. There is a fucking... This is so good for the movie. Right at the start where it's like Gene Hackman is introduced to like all of the men in the town. And by the way, obviously, if you know... like, I haven't lived in America and Monte will know this. Local... sports, like college level sports, I couldn't believe it when I was living. I mean, obviously I lived in Georgia, so where we worked in our studio on Techwood Drive, you got Georgia Tech, across from there. And we when I was at E-League, we went to some of these college. Bro, the fucking town is electric.
I'm not joking. The amount of times I have said to Americans, like something. Do you follow NBA? And they would all just go, "No, I just follow college football, baseball."
Yeah.
Almost always that was the reply.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't even follow sports.
And you know, if it's weird, if you guys think it's weird following sports in general and looking at some 20-something, 30-something athletes and then hinging your entire life around that is what these little towns are like in America. Is like, and it is really weird, by the way, as somebody who didn't come from this environment. Like, I came from a mid-sized city, but it is very weird that the entire town of like 50, 60-year-old men is focused on what's happening with some 16-year-old boys at the high school. It's fucking weird. But in places like Texas, they literally will build multi-million-dollar high school stadiums to play football in, and then go watch their children receive brain damage every week. That's just
all
what
the
they
things we front-loaded the episode with is the reason for that. It's why people are more invested in collegiate sports. And as I said, there's this
in high school
wonderful-
sports. That's what I'm saying. In high school sports in small towns is wild.
One of the great lines right at the start of this movie, which is just, it's so good. Like, whoever, when they were putting the script together, this for me was the linchpin of, when first time you watch this movie, this is when you know you're in or out. And he goes, "Well, we're sure you're a God-fearing man, Mr. Hackman, sir." And then like, so before he can even answer about his religious practices, they go, "And also, do you do man-to-man marking or zonal?" And it's like, what that does in that moment, that little throwaway line, it shows to you that these people, this is as important as the religion, almost.
Yep,
the thing that is next after Christianity is local basketball and whether the coach is going to practice it in the right way. And that's,
by the way, you could even infer that they
scripts.
weren't even. He didn't actually even really change their hearts. He just won basketball games, so that made them all go, "Yeah, actually, this is all sick. Yeah, good. I like it now."
Yeah,
Like,
And also, they were going to fire him until a local 17-year-old said, "Don't fire him, or I won't play on your
unironically, Monte,
high school basketball team."
And the second that player says that, even some old boomer woman just goes like, "Can we revote?" Like, "Oh, what the hell? Now I love this coach." Like, she just changed her entire worldview because that fucking player will play for the team.
No, but I mean, like, so what?
Who, by the way, also brilliantly self-seen. He's just Monty. He's making every shot like it's just automatic until the coach puts that thought in his brain. Then he misses one. Like, again, that could be so badly done. It's beautiful in this film. That's exactly what you want. You want it to be that he's a prodigy, of course.
That is 1 hour. That is 1 hour into the movie where he is essentially voted off the team. Then the star player who refused to play because he wanted to play for a better school comes back and goes, "I will play, but only if you keep the coach." And they change their vote. By the way, most sports movies, they end, that is the penultimate scene.
Yes.
They then go and win the championship after that. And that's the end of the movie. You get that emotional roller coaster halfway into the film. This film is 2 hours long. That's not even like, that's nowhere near
that's
the
before
penultimate scene.
And that's before the Dennis Hopper redemption arc where he's convinced to just not be an alcoholic and come back. And then Gene Hackman tells the ref to throw him out of a game
I
so
wanted
that
to bring this up.
he can coach
this is the best
by
part of the
himself
film.
to
That's
win in
actually
2
the
minutes
part
This is
I
the best
forgot.
part of the
his
film.
confidence back.
That's the one
Best part
part
of the
that
film.
isn't cliched and obvious, which is in my brain. For some reason, I'd forgotten that detail. I remembered the fact he kept getting kicked out of the game. So I remember thinking that was like his anger problems or something, because it shows that early on in the film, right? But that part's actually really subtle, because that actually shows, Monty, that the film actually isn't about basketball. Like, essentially, he actually risks a game in their, like, fucking college, in their school career, just to try and help that guy get his shit back together and repair his opportunity with his son, which, by the way, is itself a really beautiful moment, actually. But that's not really what you do in the traditional film, because the idea he explicitly tells the ref, like, do it for this reason, it's like actually fucking sick. That's like, again, that could be so cheesy, but it's really well done.
Yeah, I love that. As I said, that for me is the best part in the movie, because, right, what you realise about Dennis Hopper's drunk character, Shooter, right?
Also, the most cliched name imaginable. It's all brilliant. We all love it. It's all good.
We're all
good. We're on board.
If you are the film that makes the cliches,
True.
you are not the cliche. That's how that goes. So Shoot was just living out in the woods, drinking himself to death, living my best life. fucking, estranged from his kids. Just, It only comes into the town or the optics of everyone else just to embarrass his son, supposedly. So anyway, the original assistant coach, which also happens to be the principal that gave Gene Hackman his job, in that mad game where they had to play with 4, he just drops. Cletus is down. Cletus is having a heart attack. So he has to get a new assistant
I also
coach.
love the idea that the stress of coaching half of one game has the principal literally in fucking in ICU or something.
He's fucking down.
It's
He's down
ridiculous,
straight away, bro.
It's
He's
so
down
ridiculous.
straight away, right? And so he goes and he gets Shooter
it.
from the cabin, and he says, "I got some rules. If you're gonna come and do this, you can't be drunk. I have smell liquor on your breath. You're gonna get fired, etc." And he's just going, "But why would this matter?" It's like he just says to him, "Stone cold, you're embarrassing your son." And he goes, "I think I want you to leave." And he's just staring at the ball. Dennis Hopper fucking.
By the way,
sick,
some
kills
real
it,
turn
right?
jerk moments in this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. Oh yeah,
It
it's
touches
really
your
good.
nerve,
It's really good.
You're embarrassing your son. I don't need to hear that. I'd like you to leave. I'd like you to leave now.
And then he comes back and he does get sober.
Oh,
and
that
he's on
moment
the-
he walks in the gym is triumphant.
Yeah,
He's all looking
the
good.
suit's kind of ill-fitting.
Yeah.
Except he's shaking.
Yeah, but he's like literally shaking. He even says to him, they go start playing. He goes, "I don't feel so good, bro. I am right there with you."
Can we talk about how irresponsible Gene Hackman was
he couldn't
being,
have
trying
died
to
from
get
that.
him
Yeah,
to
he had
quit?
the dictates
You could have
as
just
fuck,
died.
yeah.
You could have
Ruining
just
this.
killed him.
You're not ruining this, Monte. You take your cynical, hard nature away from this film, sir. But anyway,
No, I love this movie.
Then, right, but he realizes he hasn't quite got him over the line. He hasn't redeemed him. He hasn't redeemed the cards. So what he has to do is he has to take him to the next stage. He's got to put him in charge. That's how he gets over the hump. That's how he gets to the next mental checkpoint in life. And so he says to the ref, "Throw me out the game." And he goes, "I can't just throw you out the game. That's highly irregular." He goes, "You got to do it so I can fucking..."
Even the idea the ref goes, "Oh, well, I mean, listen,
Yeah.
I thought I was doing a sport event, but if this is about like some
Yeah.
personal shit, you're out, like fired, like
Oh,
whatever."
you mean
Forget
this
that
will
for a second.
totally cement
I
an
know.
alcoholic's
I know,
redemption in the eyes of his son? Get out the game! Get out your bum! It's too good. So
But
Gene
you don't.
Hackman's
Here's the
gone.
thing: you don't think that in the moment. You're just in there in the moment.
No,
we're
you're
doing that
just in there,
cynically
yes.
now, we're reviewing
Yeah.
it. But in the moment
Yeah.
you're in there, you're loving it.
And then,
of course.
obviously, like Shooter's like, "But the one thing I made you promise
Yes.
was you will never get thrown out of a game," because obviously that's like Gene Hackman's temper. But what you realise, and now he's terrified, he's scared. No, what am I going to do? Gene Hackman's gone, "I can't do this." Turns out
But
Dennis
then he
Hopper-
realizes that he does know basketball, and it's the
Yes,
only
he
thing
knows
he does
ball.
know.
All he had to do was put down the bottle and just fuck it. And then he goes, "You mark him, and you go here, and you do that." And he drafts a play, and they win the game. And his son goes, "Dad, we did it. We fucking did it." And you go, "Yes, we did it. We did it. I love you, Dad. Come back."
You did good, Pop. You did real good.
You did it, Shooter!
Which
so
again
good.
is a perfect example, because when he says "I love you, Dad," if you don't stick the landing on that, you ruin the whole thing. But they just stick every landing in this film. It's
I know,
crazy.
it's
And by the way,
it's-
what's mad is, aside from Gene Hackman, there's not that many good actors in the film. Dennis Hopper's in it. There's one or two.
Yeah.
A lot of the background characters, as Richard says, don't even get their character developed much. They're just one.
The high school
they're-
kids
they're
never
one-
really
no,
ever
The high
did
school
anything
kids
in
didn't
Hollywood.
even have names.
They're all
They didn't
they're
even
all
have names.
one
I
note
don't know.
archetypes that literally are obvious.
Yep.
But
We've got
even
the
their-
scrawny
even
kid, the
their
praying
emotional
kid.
connection actually works in the film. Like you actually believe it. It's
Yeah.
like I can say it. That's why it's a very pure film for me.
Yeah, oh, it is. It's like I said, I've never met anyone who hates this movie. Like, by the way, if you want to be an edgelord in the comments afterwards and say you hate this movie, you'll know in your heart of hearts.
There's
even if
something
you
wrong
type that
with
out. Yeah. You know, no, you are just being an edge. It's never happened. Never in the history of cinema has someone gone, "Yeah, that Hoosiers movie's fucking awful, isn't it? Like, I hate it. Hate every second of it." No, you didn't. You did not. You can point to, "Well, it's a bit broad, isn't it?" Sure. You can point to, "Well, that's been done before." Probably not, actually. This was 86.
No, it's like the Citizen Kane angle to me of like this did
Yeah.
it first, like you say. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You know, but whatever. Maybe there were some other sports movies you can point to from the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s that paved the way for Hoosiers. But ultimately, in terms of the fact that this comes out in 86, this is, like, this is essentially why I wanted to pick it, not just because Gene Hackman was in it, which was obviously
No, that was a sick reason, though. It's another great Gene Hackman film, yeah.
But when you think about all of the great sports movies of the 80s, and I am telling you, the 80s is full of this shit, right? The 80s is full of it because it was exactly where America was mentally at that time. Cocaine was everywhere, money was up, you had Reagan going on. So yeah, it was fucking, America was sick. It was sick in the 80s, right? They were on top. And so obviously, how do you celebrate being on top? By winning. And where do you win the most? Sports. And so every month, there's like just another banging fucking sports movie coming out in the mid to late 80s. It's just insane. And even ones that are like abstract, as I said, this isn't even about the sport.
Well,
there's barely any basketball in this basketball
it was
movie.
It was also like the era of the underdog, because remember that the Miracle on Ice happened at the 1980 Olympics, which is one of the great real sports underdog stories of all time. We talked about doing Miracle, which is the movie about that, but one of the most profound sports upsets in history, right? And it was of course, the American teams overtaking the Soviets, right? As a symbol of the Cold War, very important. And, to a certain degree, the Cold War was always, I think we can say in retrospect, this was not truthful, but that was not people's opinions when the Cold War was happening, was that the Americans felt a lot of the times that they were losing to communism. They felt like they were the freedom fighters, the underdogs against this red tide that was overcoming the entire globe, especially after China, like the Mao's revolution, right? Especially after losing in Vietnam, like getting their asses kicked in Vietnam. So, there was kind of, I think, a sense amongst people during that era that the underdog sports story is an American sports story, or is an American underdog story against the global forces against freedom in the world. I think you can definitely say that was the zeitgeist.
Yeah, Tarantino has said this in multiple interviews. He thinks the two decades that are the worst for films are the 50s and the 80s. And he says in the 50s, you had everything we've talked about in previous episodes, like the Hays Code and all this censorious nonsense. It was very hard to tell an adult story without a studio or the government getting involved.
Plus the government stepping in and doing the communism witch hunts in the entertainment industry in the 50s as well.
All of this shit going on. So yeah, the 50s was very, I mean, by the way, obviously people did that thing when Tarantino said this, of going, he said the 50s and the 80s were the worst eras, and people go, but there were loads of good movies.
Right.
He's not saying that. But anyway, but the 80s, it was self-censorship, essentially. And people chose the type of story they wanted to tell. And this is why, certainly, if you compare it to the 70s, even the 90s, I would argue, it's not a very transgressive era in film. But it is a very wholesome era in a lot of
It's fun.
areas.
I mean, think about a lot of the movies that people still think about from the 80s. Sports movies, this would be one of them, right? Teenage movies.
What
Back
about
to the Future?
What about what came out the year before this, which is a really good, as crazy as it sounds, it's a really good comparison in a way, and that's Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf is, for those who've not seen it, it's Michael J. Fox as a werewolf because his dad is a werewolf, and he uses his. See, we've got a werewolf break in this episode. I'm working on levels, guys. There's levels to this game, right? So anyway,
spoiler: the werewolf was Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need a clock. Guess the werewolf. It's the one who's hairy. It's him. Anyway, so he uses his werewolf skills to be really good at basketball, and so he turns his small. Yeah, cheating. He's cheating the whole time. He's basically on steroids, werewolf.
He's not even human at the time he's playing the game. You have to at least be human.
So he's basically fucking turned this local school team into like the best team in the world. He becomes an icon. They're all selling werewolf merchandise.
I love the way they just accept it in this film, but whatever. We're not reviewing that film right now. It's all good. I'm not going to let this all get
We should have picked that sports film.
But obviously, his stardom starts to cloud his mind. He starts misbehaving. His girlfriend gets on top of him. People are like, all his teammates are like, well, we just passed her the wolf, don't we? And then he does a werewolf shot and it goes in. So what's the point? Why are we even here? It's all him. And so what he does is he turns up to the last game, the championship-winning game, and he says, I'm not being a wolf, because also he's not like a werewolf in the traditional sense where it's a horrible curse. universe that happens to him every full moon. He can just turn it on and off.
It's like
for some
cosplaying
reason.
it, I know.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, he plays as himself. They win the game. He wins his missus, who's called Boof for some reason, whatever, and they win. And everyone's like, at the end, yeah, they literally end. The final shot of Teen Wolf is them all in the bleachers, like all having a great time. And so that movie right there, right, combines sports movies, horror movies. It's a feel-good
Coming of age.
Yeah, it's a feel-good coming-of-age movie.
Because when I think of the 80s, I think a lot about coming-of-age movies.
They love
which,
a good
Hoosiers
coming-of-age
is also
movie.
one.
They do. And so ultimately, what you have to... This film could only exist in the 80s. Like, there is no other era Teen Wolf can get made. Because if you pitch that to a studio, they would laugh in your face. They would just be like, what are you talking about? It's got 5 genres. But no, and so not only does it have 5 genres, it makes all of them work somehow. It was a huge commercial success and a really good, fond memory for lots of kids who grew up in the 80s. Teen Wolf, Karate Kid. There is this baked-in wholesomeness to this type of movie.
Like I said, Back to the Future, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like all of the 16 Candles, all of the Breakfast Club, all of the 80s coming of age, teenage movies.
What I love about Back to the Future is as well, Back to the Future is somehow like so insanely wholesome. You forget that the second scene of the movie is Doc Brown being murdered by Libyan terrorists. And then you just forget. Now we're putting that out.
Plus, it also has that scene, and I can tell you, this might sound mad because I've watched some of the craziest horror. I've watched like Gaspar Noé films while I was high. One of the only films that ever really fucked me up on an edible once was Back to the Future because I forgot how dark the implication is of that rape scene with Biff. Remember, in the actual our timeline, he just rapes a bro like that. Really. Realizing this is a kid's movie, what the fuck? Like, I forgot that was in it, mate. That implication's mad.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's counter wholesome. It creates a level of wholesomeness that it just bleaches out the horror. Yes. But also, there's an incest thing going on. Yeah. It's Back wild, to the Future. If it wasn't so wholesome,
it's secretly edgy. Edgy.
Michael J. Fox basically makes that movie work.
Yes.
Another director, another star. That's a nightmare. That's just nightmare fuel. That would be really, really bad. Like, I'd love to see, again, like, just if David Lynch was still alive, his version of Back to the Future or something, you know what I mean? It would be just horrifying. It would just be Mulholland Drive. Duncan would hate it. Anyway, point being.
Just to put a capstone on the 80s conversation, because I find it interesting, but these were the top grossing movies of the 80s.
Okay, this is good. I'll agree.
E.T.,
right,
The Empire Strikes Back, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Feel good.
Batman, which also is not, it's the Tim Burton Batman, so it's like
and it's
weird,
89,
but
so,
kooky.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Back to the Future.
Feel good.
Return of the Jedi. Top Gun.
I mean,
Rain Man.
Look at this. Feel good.
Rain Man, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Temple of Doom, Back to the Future 2, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Crocodile Dundee. Also, Beverly Hills Cop was in the top 15. So
another feel-good movie. Put it this way. I know, yeah, basically, right. Put it this way. They're like Halle Berry in Monsters Ball. Like, but I mean, feel good.
But out of all these movies, I don't think our point is, I don't think you look back at these, and it's not the 70s where you're getting The Godfather and Apocalypse Now and The Conversation and like really interesting art house films from that era, right? This is definitely a shallower time.
Yeah, right? I mean, look, definitely there is an archetype of movie. You'll notice, by the way, as well, loads of like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Is it really an adventure movie? Well, no. The real adventure is in the real
in
Holy
the father-son
Grail
relationship.
Is the father-son relationship, exactly. There's loads of this in the 80s. It's like all the kids who had estranged dads grew up and just became directors. By
the way, that actually does tie back into this film because one of the things that is subtle about this film, it has this really obvious, overt storyline that you can follow. It's really easy to enjoy. Everyone can like it. As we say, it's all the sports cliches, which I'm actually pretty sure a lot of them do come from here. They originate from here and they were just copied by the people. One thing that's actually subtly planted early and then just becomes overt is think about very early on when he meets I can't remember the name of the school teacher, the woman basically, the one woman in the movie, like Richard says.
Yeah.
When he meets the one woman in the movie who isn't her mother, one of the things she explains is that he has to leave this sports star alone. And the reason why is actually very pertinent, Monty. It's the idea that she doesn't want this person to be defined by being really good in high school at sports, because what will that then do to the rest of your life? Spoiler, Dennis Hopper's character is the fucking example of what would happen. Yeah. And I think that's actually a much bigger point than people realise, because that is actually, and by the way, that might be the one vaguely subversive element of the film. I mean, true, they overcome it in the film. At this time, I don't know, in the early 80s, that people really had the thought that this wasn't like a dream of something, that this could essentially be like a trapping, self-fulfilling prophecy, because I do think that you have seen many, many people, like the Dennis Hopper character, who they were the guy where it's like, if I'd have made that shot, man, and they're just talking about it like, not in a fun Al Bundy way. They're really in a bar, just that's their story 40 years later.
That is a salient...
Yeah.
That is a salient commentary. That is a salient commentary on small town America, and Miss Fleener is her name. I mean, that her entire character revolves around that, because she accuses Gene Hackman's character when he shows up of like, what's wrong with you? Why are you here? Nobody comes here. No outsider comes here at your age unless there's something wrong with them.
Even though it's set up as though she's being bitchy. She's right. She's nailed something. Like, why would this shit coach be here now? Yeah.
I know you're here. I know this place doesn't even appear on most state maps. A man your age comes to a place like this, he's running away from something, or he has nowhere else to go.
So he asks, well, why have you come back here? Well, my mother needed help or was sick or whatever the hell she says, because she has roots there and she had to come back to help her family. But, it is a lot of this film is about escaping these small towns. And there is, I think there is commentary here that if you are still in this town, you probably didn't have a lot of potential. And so how do you give meaning to your life? By following high school basketball when you're a 60-year-old man whose kids are not in the high school anymore. It's weird. Yes. It's weird.
I mean, another aspect to this is, and Duncan's right to pick up on this, is, you will know somebody like this. You will know, like, I had so many teachers growing up that were just like, listen, I could have been playing for this football team, but my knee went. They all, it's like you can just sense the fucking misery. Like, every day they wake up and go, I'm in the shit timeline. It's like that episode of Red Dwarf. where they wake up with the fucking Suicide Squid, and they wake up and they're just a shit version of themselves. They're everything they hate in fucking reality, and not what they thought they were, not the definitions by which they define themselves. I know so many teachers that happened to. Like, I had a great teacher. He was really, really cool guy. Could have played for Leeds. Fucking blew his knee out. Life over. Fuck your life. You're now a teacher in a shit school. Like, and like, what that does to somebody is super interesting. And it is true. Like, I mean, I've done a little bit of coaching, and I was around a lot of local sports. Rugby, obviously, was my thing. And, I've seen scouts come and tell kids at like 14, you aren't going to go pro. It's not happening. You're not good enough. You're not even good enough for county level, let alone this. You should, if anything, you should stay in school. And I've seen devastated parents, devastated kids, but it's just like the brutal nature of sports is 1 minute you are on top of the world as a kid, got a whole, fucking world's going to be your oyster. He's so good at 12. He's so good at 13. He's so good at 14. What about 15? What about 16? What about 17? And there's this level of maintenance.
And the truth of sports, and like we know this from esports, but it's not enough to be hot shit. Even in, state high school athletics, even if you win in Indiana, there's somebody else who won in every other of the 50 states in America. And it's not good. And you still are probably not good enough.
Is what makes it work, though, the scale of this movie. Because if it was halfway through, they won the state championship, and then they go to the interstate championship, and then, nah. This is it's so important to understand in life. Victories are all relative. Like, they're relative. Like,
but what I think is good about this is that it is a fairy tale in a certain way, where it's a huge underdog story. But how does the fairy tale come about? Sure, they have Jimmy, who is good, but he's not he's not going to be the next star of the NBA good.
No.
Right? He's good
he's
for
not Larry Bird,
small town Indiana.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, they say he's the best player we've ever seen in this one town in Indiana. Like, he's the best player they've ever had, but that doesn't mean much in the grand scale of things. And what the theme that's, I think, very touching about this film and where it succeeds is that it's ultimately about teamwork and discipline and following a path, right? And overcoming your own personal obstacles and your hesitations in order to put the team first. And that's just a life skill. I mean, I don't think most parents put their kids into sports in school because they think they're going to be professional athletes. They do it because it develops other skills for you as a human that are then applicable in other parts of your life where you probably can be more successful. Right.
Now, also, though, I'll say this. What is really fascinating about this movie as well, it's another reason why I believe it works and it feels authentic, is the guy that wrote the original screenplay and is a guy called Angelo Pizzo, and he was a journalist that like covered like local sports. This was his beat. He also did Rudy, which we're gonna get to. So,
well, and the director also did Rudy. So, like, you know, it's the same team that does Rudy, which is our third movie in this arc, which is also considered one of the greatest sports films of all time. Yeah. These guys knew what they were doing when it came to making the small town sports feel real.
It's why you might say at times, this is a cliche, but you will never say this is far-fetched. It's
very real.
Oh, by the way, even the ending, this is an example where I actually want people to get what we said at the beginning. This isn't a film about being cynical and picking it apart. Like, put it this way, if you wrote this film in the modern day, you actually would take what Gene Hackman says in his speech before the final game and you would have them lose the game because it would have been all about the journey, not the destination, you know, Monte. But instead, because it is a movie that's just straight up and it is almost like archetypal about dreams, of course they win in the end. That's actually good that they win in the end. Even though, again, you notice I didn't pick that part to pick apart. The idea that, like, the shit kid on the team makes the clutch free throws while he's being iced and everyone's... Yeah, obviously in real life that's the least plausible part, but that's essentially what the whole movie on a mythic level is about. The idea that even the shitter little kid, if he believes in himself, can overcome and have his moment of triumph when they lift him up and all that.
Why would we make a movie out of this if it wasn't going to be the ultimate triumph? You know what I mean?
But this would be, I'll give you the analogy, Monte,
of telling the story.
This is like someone going... Oh, you mean he shot a missile down an exhaust pipe on a giant spit? If you couldn't follow the rest of the movie to that point, and that was your sticking point, like, what are you doing? And if you have followed it,
and then the Death Star blew them up and they all died.
At the end
of movie.
At the end, just ride with that part. I have the same problem with Interstellar. Yeah. You know, people go, I was with it until the Tesseract scene. Like, again, that's like complaining about a film where, like, animals are talking and stuff, mate, but you don't have a problem with that. You have a problem with them having a bank account later, you know, like, if the Tesseract film at the end's ruining it for you, how did you get through the rest of the film, mate? There was all ghosts and shit, you know what I mean? Like, he was on a planet where years passed by. At that point, you bought your ticket, enjoy the end of the ride.
Listen, I've got problems with Interstellar, but it's not about the Tesseract. Exactly. It's jumped the shark before there, when she gives that speech about love being a force equivalent to physics. Yeah.
But people just pick the weirdest things to apply like a standard to when they walk to the rest, you know. Because I'm with Monte. At the end, of course, just let him win the fucking game. Come on.
Yeah.
Also, I put it this: I don't want to make this the Interstellar episode, but like, when she just sends him away at the end, like, give me some catharsis, like, for fuck's sake, like, he's done all of that. He's gone through a
Oh, no, it is wild that he meets her for like 5 minutes. He's like, anyway, I'm just going to talk to my family. You fuck off, Dad. Anyway,
I'm about to die. So this is all your real family now.
Yeah.
Probably, but, like, just let me die in peace, yeah? Well, like, what? But I did all of that to get back to you. And then he's just sat talking to his robot buddy at the end. And then, obviously, you want the spin-off, Matthew McConaughey.
It shouldn't have had the epilogue, essentially. It shouldn't have had that bit at the end. That part did ruin it, I'm with you.
Yeah. So there you go. But anyway, one film that doesn't need an epilogue is Hoosiers. It is one long epilogue.
By the way, I even like that the ending Monty's talking about is actually also very well done. It's a slow shot where they don't overtly tell you this. It's just implied that obviously this kid was inspired by the fact that, like, anyone from this town could do anything. He's making free throws, a little kid. They just slowly pan in on that picture. That's just a picture of them holding the shot. It doesn't then do a screen
and it's
like
Jack Nicholson in The Shining.
It doesn't then do the fucking screen where it goes like, and after this, the coach drank himself into oblivion,
Yeah,
and four of them
no,
went off to
there's
Vietnam.
none of that. There's none of that.
It just leaves
Yeah.
it. You don't need
Little
it.
Jimmy
Like,
died
don't
in
need
that.
to know anything more.
What I like about it too is that we don't even know what happens to Gene Hackman's character afterwards.
it's not
Does he
necessary,
stay?
mate.
Does he go
It's not
somewhere else?
necessary.
We don't know what happens with his relationship with Miss Fleener, right? But it doesn't matter because I also think it's very poignant, which is that we have this entire movie that's building up to this unlikely state championship and the most meaningful thing that has ever happened to this town. And what is it at the end? It's just a picture really high up on a wall.
Yeah, I love it.
And like no, I love it too, because what matters is you realize what matters is the story.
Yeah.
It's the story that matters. And it's the story and what people are going to tell each other in this town that is the relevant thing. That's what brings the community together. It's not the fact that it happened. It's not even the fact that it's there's a memorial to it in this picture, right? It's the fact that the people are just going to keep talking about it for, like I said, 100 years, right? And I think that's really profound in a way. And it's more meaningful because had this, let's reverse this. Had that high school from the big city into Indiana, whatever, South Bend, right? Had they won their second title, we know they won last year. It would have been fucking meaningless.
Yeah, correct.
In comparison. But
Correct.
the meaning entirely comes from the community in which the meaning lives.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And that's the advantage of being in small towns, right? It doesn't just shit all over small town America. I think it has some very interesting commentary on small town America, but part of it is how close-knit people are, how meaningful people's relationships are, how they can have really profound effects on each other. Even that kid standing up for Gene Hackman's character and saying, like, he needs to stay here. People change over the course of this movie. And in big cities, you don't necessarily see that change because you can hide forever in a sea of people and never actually have to confront anyone. In small communities, you will be confronted constantly, sometimes in bad ways, sure, but sometimes in very good ways.
Yeah, which is another reason why the film is just earnest. Like, there's obviously another trope of sports movies is the coach is the outsider, and he comes into the small town, and he only, wins them over by winning, which sounds like I'm describing Hoosiers, but that isn't what's going on. There's like a little bit more to it. There's a little bit more juice in the tank of this one, and that is that ultimately they don't fuck with his style of basketball, but they come along for the ride of the story and what it's about, which is he takes a group of young men and he gives them all of the tools they need to succeed in life, and the vector for that success in this moment, what they succeed at in the immediacy, is the state championship. And what that does for the town, it's the rising tide raises all ships. Like, there's a genuine sense by the end with that final shot that what they did is going to echo through the generations.
Yeah,
like,
and
it's a
you
big
know
deal.
that we had all of our little arcs with the kids
Yeah.
too, where they were refusing. That one kid was refusing to participate at the beginning because he didn't want to shut up and listen to the wisdom of his coach, and his dad brings him back and is like, "Fucking apologize," and then he agrees to listen.
By the
And
way,
you
Monty,
have-
that's even a part that plays against the idea of look at these stupid hicks. Like, that shows actually that dad has values. Is like, you should respect your coach
correct.
and listen. That's actually a cool.
Yeah.
It's an understated scene. It's quite a cool scene. Yeah,
It's a really good scene, I think. But, you don't leave this film thinking, and then they all went on to success as professional basketball players.
Nope.
You think to yourself, wow, they really became adults in a way. This was their rise to manhood. And isn't
Correct.
that the inspiring
That's-
story here?
But it's also, because again, there's just so many nice little one-liners in this movie. When they have the argument with the teacher who says, "Look, I don't want this kid's peak of his life to be this time in school. I've seen those men, and all you have to do is be good at basketball in a town like this to be treated like a god." And Gene Hackman says, "Do you know how many people, do you know what they'd give to be treated like a god just for a few seconds?"
doesn't that fucking hit today? By the way, that fucking line. Yeah, absolutely.
Boom.
A basketball hero around here is treated like a god. I mean, how can you ever find out what he could really do? I don't want this to be the high point of his life. I've seen them, the real sad ones. They sit around the rest of their lives talking about the glory days when they were 17 years old.
Most people would kill to be treated like a god just for a few moments.
Like, and what it's true. Like, it's like, is it
Well, but
better?
she's also like denying him glory in a way, right?
Yeah.
And she's deciding she knows what's best for him.
Yeah, exactly. She's denying him what she believes will be a transient and ephemeral glory in exchange for what she values, which might be some form of academic success down the road. But I'll tell you, there is nothing like... In life, there is nothing like being the guy that wins the game. Like that, there is nothing like that. The potency of that feeling, I never forget. Like, I can still remember playing at fucking junior level rugby, 13-year-old getting the winning try in a game. You know what I mean? And how that felt when we all got back. Like, bro, that's fucking insane. That level of just raw adrenaline and joy and pride. That is something else. And Gene Hackman, his character, is telling her that, look, you might not understand this, but that feeling is something that people are right to treasure for the rest of their lives, and people would do anything to experience it. And she is saying, but is there not more? I hate to break it to you. After all, it is just a game. But what you realize through what Hoosiers is telling you, what all great sports movies tell you, is it isn't just a fucking game. It is, but it's how we experience life. You go into sports and you learn lessons. You come out of sports having learnt something. People don't really bounce off sports. You don't go, well, I played it once and I didn't like it, and or I played on a team for 4 years and I got absolutely nothing out of it. No one ever says that. For so many people in life, it is where you learn and you develop and you build relationships, and you might encounter your first ever male mentor that is peripheral.
Think how many people say the coach was the father figure. It's a classic trope, isn't it?
I still remember my first rugby coach. 12 years old, mate. Still remember his fucking name. Still remember what he looked like. Still remembered his stupid, hawky
We won't make the inappropriate
feedback.
Jokes here,
No, definitely not when we're talking about Hoosiers. That's another episode.
Yeah, that's true as well. That's true.
Right, don't ruin Hoosiers. Not Hoosiers. Right, not in front of Gene Hackman. Okay, but I still remember the coach and and the feedback he used to give us, and how when times were tough at home, you could go to the club and you could just train and get away from it.
Oh, for sure.
It's
an escape too.
Yeah, that's another thing people don't talk about with sports. For many kids, a lot of kids, particularly in the Northeast, where I grew up, particularly in rural Wales, sometimes you're just getting the shit kicked out of you at home. Sometimes you are dealing with an alcoholic dad or an estranged parents. Sometimes you have to be an adult way ahead of the period in life you're meant to be. Which
happens in this movie, where the kid is saying, I'm proud of you, and is trying to be the inspiration for his own father, which is a fucked up situation, but that's how life works.
But so where do I go when my home life stinks? Where do I go to get away from it? I go to the club. I see the boys. I see the coach. You can talk to your coach. It's like, people don't get it. If you've never had that life, you don't understand it. If you've never been part of that, and this is why people treasure it. And this is what I just love about this film. It's just an earnest representation of what that is and why people pursue it to begin with. And I just
honestly, male relationships.
Yeah, correct.
Male relationships, male role models, right? It's a very male movie.
I mean, listen, it's a very male movie. It's a very white movie. It might be the whitest basketball movie ever made, right? But obviously, there's historical reasons for that.
Teen Wolf?
It's not. Well, also but again, there is, because it isn't making any broad political statements. It's not talking about, like, why men are into sports. It's not talking about that. It's not making any broad commentary on all the problematic issues of the 50s. It is just saying, in this small town, which existed, there was this team which existed, and they did this thing that wasn't even all that great. It's a footnote in the history of sports, but it meant everything to them, and it meant everything to this town, and it turned lives around, and it was a really good fucking thing. And it just happened. And boom, that's it. And that's all you need. That's all you need from a sports movie. I don't need you to pipe me into this other thing. Yeah, it can be great. It can be cool when you do that. There's some sports movies which, of course, like a big analogy for American society. But sometimes I just want to hear a story about a bunch of fucking guys that went and played their fucking hearts out in a sport, and they got to taste victory. And in that moment, they all looked at each other and they went, "Bro, I couldn't have fucking done this without you." It's like war. It's why war films hit. It's like, I watched Hacksaw Ridge the other day. I'll cry.
Well, you could also say that sports for men are a proxy for combat anyway.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously that's just true. But like, again, this is like, right, Hoosiers, as mad as it sounds, it kind of does feel like a bit of a war movie. It's always in the background. Obviously Hackman is a Navy man, but it does feel like that. It's like we took a bunch of young men that weren't ready for war, and we took them to war, and the battles got progressively harder, and they won, and they all got to go home intact. Great, love that. Tell me more of that. I don't give a fuck. It can be war, it can be sports. Sometimes I just need that, right? And Hoosiers does it probably better and more earnestly than 99% of sports movies you're going to see. And as a segue, a lot of that is down to Gene Hackman. I think his performance in this is so layered and nuanced. You might not think he's doing a lot, but there are so many moments where he nails, you can sense the rage just below the surface. He absolutely nails when someone knows they have a temper and they are trying to not lose it. He absolutely fucking kills that. Like, absolutely. I think, honestly, doing the Hackman arc and then watching this, it's made me realize that, and look, this might be sacrilege, but we're out of the Hackman arc now, so I can say it. I do think maybe some of his later performances, he was kind of he kind of fell into that Pacino thing where he was a bit over-reliant on being able to go big. I can shout and I can turn anger on in a second. This is way better acting. This is like, you can see there's like a moment, just a little moments, little gestures that he makes, like where he's in the room with them and they're all like just sat down and he's had to tell them off for the first time because they didn't follow his instructions, and then he looks up like he's going to catch himself and say, but then he realizes that would be counterproductive, so he looks down again. It's wonderful. Hackman's wonderful in this movie. He's so good. Him and Hopper are just fucking fantastic, just masters of their craft. Give me a Dennis Hopper arc, by the way. But Hackman is great in this film. He carries this movie.
I mean, we've already done this and Blue Velvet. What do you want? Easy Rider? What was your Hopper arc be? We've taken away
it wouldn't even be films. It would just be 4 episodes telling stories about all the time he got wrecked on cocaine and just acted like a maniac. But no, I mean, like, honestly, Hackman is insanely good in this movie, and I'll tee Duncan up here. The only thing that doesn't feel authentic is him as a romantic figure.
That is the only part. It's like they wanted to put every possible storyline into the film, like you say. But the problem is the only one that doesn't work that well is the romance part. Like, look, it is obviously like they are signaling like put it this way, this woman isn't just coming and talk to him just because of that kid who's the fucking basketball player. She's obviously interested in him in some way, and she can sense that there's more to him, and, there's some story he won't reveal about his background that he doesn't talk about, etc. But the problem I have is this. I could certainly believe that they become friends. I could even believe she's open to the idea. But the moment he kisses her, the problem is the line he then delivers is that is actually bad writing. The line where it's like, I've been thinking about kissing you first more I got here. Well, I'm sorry, Gene. You did too good a job of the Stoke acting Richard just said. You kept that part secret. I in no way, if I rewatch this movie with my director's commentary, will I be seeing him going, he's just sticking a fucking neck in her, like.
Imagine kissing you ever since I first saw you.
There's no way, like that part.
It's also why would
they pushed the boat out on that one for me?
I also just don't want to see Gene Hackman kissing anyone. Like, I gotta be honest.
But why would he be even interested in her, considering she appears to stand for everything against everything that he cares about?
Yeah, I mean, look.
Well, without making this too edgy, Monty, unfortunately, that is also a trope. Which, look, Is it in real life? Is it just in movies? That's how I will protect myself. But there's an idea, Monty, that sometimes women are like, I'm against everything you believe. God, I need to be with you. It's like, there's
but
a
why
weird
would he be interested?
I know. Because that's the ultimate catch in some ways, Monty. You know, the one who's not interested.
I mean, I'll also add,
pursuit.
she is straight fire.
She's pretty good. She's pretty good.
Yeah, well,
But it's weird. If you get banished to a small shitter town in Indiana and think that's the end of my career, tell you what, if you go, not bad, things are looking up. She's interested. Someone unique here. Obviously, they're also doing that thing as well, Monty, where like she's herself slightly too good for this town, so she wouldn't be interested in some yokel, would she? But this big city guy's going, what's going on here? I think I'm not interested. Like there's a bit of Jane Austen in there. You know what I mean? There's a little bit shaded in there.
I mean, like Barbara Hershey's in him. She's got like
she does a good job, by the way. She's actually pretty good in this movie. Yeah.
She reminds me of like a Sigourney Weaver or someone like that in this film. You know, in the fact that she is a very like stoic, you can tell immediately the way she's coded, independent woman. But yeah, the romance is the thing that fails.
They don't stick that one. That one's the only part for me that doesn't.
I mean, and ultimately though,
it's not a big deal. It's a very minor.
Nah, it doesn't even need to be there. It's not like there's no redemptive element to.
It also
to
doesn't overtake the movie in any way. It's like one scene and then it goes away, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the thing I like about it is the way the mother fucking teased them up. Because obviously she's super standoffish and is like, we gotta go. And fucking Gene Hackman's just being a gentleman going, I'll get those potatoes for you, ma'am. And the mother says something like, what is it? She said she has like a mad line where she goes like, the sun doesn't shine on a dog's arsehole twice or something like, what the fuck?
Sun don't shine on the same dog's ass every day, but mister, you ain't seen a ray of light since you got here. I believe it's time we had a talk. Sunday. Supper.
I accept.
Hello?
In a way, though, that in itself is also small town wholesomeness. The idea that like an older relative will be the one that knows better than sets you up for what you should really just get on with anyway. You know,
And she goes, "You're coming to dinner at my house with my guest." And obviously, she's just doing that to get.
And by the way, you've just reminded me though. You've queued me up for one thing that is actually absurd in this film, and this is nothing to do with the movie or the script. This just doesn't work because of the casting. Do you remember the line he says before he takes that girl for a walk and kisses her? He says, "Your mother just gave me a haircut." Got you, bitch. Because if we know one thing about Gene Hackman, his hair never grew in his entire life. He had the same exact haircut from 1972 through to the day he died. Exactly, it never grew. It was just perfect. It went up to there. You all know that.
It is mad.
Around there, and it never grew. It never got longer. He never went bald. He just had that one haircut. And also, we pointed this out before, but I have to stress it. This motherfucker does not age. He did not age. He just stayed 42 his entire life. I've never seen anyone do this.
It's crazy. He looks exactly the same in Night Moves as he does in this movie that's like 12 years later.
His face looks the same. It just looks a bit more weathered. That's it. His skin just gets weathered. That's it. He never ever aged, this guy. It's mental. It's mental.
No, it is wild. I remember after he passed and they did Gene Hackman's life in pictures.
Or was it just like the same fucking face moving around with different backgrounds behind us?
It's just like his clothes just changed. I was like,
there you go. Exactly. It's just him aging through fashion or something.
I was like, this looks fucking photoshopped. What is happening here? But like, obviously, at the end, he did look frail and
see,
and
the ultimate
old and
irony
sick,
is
but...
this is the person you should have actually cast in all those like superhero movies because he wouldn't need the anti-aging technology. He already did it, didn't he?
I know, exactly.
You wouldn't need the Magneto shit. He just already looked like that 30 years later, didn't he? Because he is bonkers. Somehow, I've never seen anyone. I made this point on, I think, the episode that was like about the fucking... It was one of the first ones we did. I think it was maybe even the French Connection. Yeah. I said, bro, he's already in his 40s in that film. Like... But it just never aged. This guy's amazing.
No, what's mental is I looked at a picture of him when he was like 20 years old, when he was first starting as an actor. And it's like, if you'd have told me that was a 42-year-old man, I would be like, yeah, of course it is. Like,
so he grew into his age.
He had that thing. I probably got a bit of it going on. Like, I know this is mental to think about. Obviously, people say you're fat, you're bald, all of that stuff. But I do regularly get told, I'm in my 40s. Oh, really? I get that sometimes. So maybe I'm going to stay like this. Maybe I've got that Hackman gene where it's just by virtue, by virtue of being ugly early, as I get older, people, kind of, you haven't changed in years. So,
I do think one of the funniest random side things you ever said, even though it was like mad self-indulgent, was where one time, after you'd come back, I think, from E-League, you had that weird period where you grew your hair out again, and then you just did an episode where you said, you all thought I was bald. I was just fucking memeing on you, and I was shaving it the whole time. Which is like, what a mad start to the fans.
No, listen, I've told you, I'm 100% going to get the plugs. Like, I'm getting a hair transplant.
By the way, I've told this story before.
That's going to blow everyone's mind.
In one of the classic Richard Lewis self-indulgent moments, he did once turn to me right before we did E-League and say something like, when I go out there, though, I'm going all in. Like, I'm getting teeth done, I'm getting hair implants. So he made it sound like he was just going to be like some like fucking wrecked out Hollywood celeb. Like,
listen, I'm 100. The hair plugs are coming, boys. Just be prepared. Just be prepared. Like there'll be that episode where I have to record it after having it done, and my head looks like Yakub or something. Sure. Right? It'll be like that. But I'm having them
just
done.
Wear a hat.
No, listen, you can't. I've looked into it, mate. When you first get it done, you have like 2 weeks where you can't put nothing on your head in case it doesn't take. So, I'm just saying, but it's coming, boys. It's coming. Be prepared. They're not Hackman and me. I'm not having that. Because one thing I will say about Gene Hackman, fantastic actor, but shit hairline. It's ridiculous. He got away with that for years, and he shouldn't have been allowed to. He should have been forced into a hair transplant.
It was the 80s.
Yeah, whatever. You could get away with shit hair in the 80s.
By the way, another thing about this film that shows me that the story does win out above all, and Gene Hackman's performance, is think about how many people in the film. It's actually the characters you'll know as actors are a lot of the like role players, like the people of the city. Like the actual people on the team. Did any of those people ever start a film again? Like I never saw any of these fuckers have careers. Even like the young people who were cast as like the good looking. It's not a film with a star-studded cast. It's not even one of those ones where we go in hindsight. Wow, they picked a bunch of people that went on to become, Ethan Hawke or something. There's none of that. Like these people are nobodies. It's just. That's why I think you nailed it earlier. They're not supposed to be super fleshed out characters. The story is above the sort of narrative of the film.
They have their one note and their one note moment, but it's about the team and like you get to see the weave of all the characters together.
Like for example, I'll bet the first time you watch this, it's hard for us to remember back then, but if someone's watching this and they only watched it for this arc, I'll bet you appreciate this. The first time you watch it, I bet that character who's sort of the other star player when the Jimmy kid doesn't play, the one who initially takes the shot when he's told not to after 4 passes and gets thrown out the game, right? I bet you thought there was going to be some mad development with him. There's none. That's it.
No,
after he basically punches the person in to sort of retaliate for the coach, that's about it. That's the end of his character. He's just there to be another player. Like
It's bad enough we gotta play in this cage you call a gym. Your players are playing like a bunch of gorillas.
Who you calling gorilla?
You, for one.
Bust off.
they don't try and take you on some mad journey of extra storylines. They stick fairly to the main storyline. Everything's related to that, but that works. That also another thing, by the way, this film doesn't feel too long at all. It feels really well paced.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll add to this. There's 2 fistfights out of nowhere in this movie, which you might think, that's a bit much, but no. Local sports happens all the time.
Sure, yeah.
All the time. All the time. Played in a rugby game back in the day. Again, would have been about 14 or 15. Fucking massive fist fight.
Also, it's classic that when you were at that level, the ref is always on one of the teams, basically. That's also like a classic trope.
Every game.
Of course.
You bring your own ref.
Yeah.
It's your ref, and it's just some dickhead. It's just someone's dad.
Yeah.
It's just like, he's not even a qualified ref, but he's reffing the game of day, and, it's rugby, so the ref might be wrong, but he's always the ref. Yep. That was something we always got told by our coach. He also, while we're talking about other phrases, rugby, classic, you'll have heard this, quick hands, mate, quick feet. I used to get told, I used to have my coach scream into my face while training. So, fist fights do happen. This movie gets that perfect. The guy gets wrecked. He gets launched through a trophy cabinet, right? Which is also kind of a nice little motif in the film.
They do awkwardly fight over and then crash in a way where the camera's like, oh, that's all their trophies and ribbons. I even love how cliched that is. That's so well done.
Yeah, because obviously they're the Hoosiers, the Huskers or whatever they're called. They haven't got nothing. They've got no trophies. So the irony of being launched to a trophy cabinet is perfect. Love that. Blade of fucking shard of glass in the shoulder.
his stitches burst.
Yeah, by the way, Monty, that part is a bit
it's
jarring
great.
if you're in the modern day. You know where he goes like just stitch it back up and say, it's high school fucking sports. His shoulders like hanging out. But in this era, like, get back in there, you pussy.
Gene Hackman, by the way, like straight out of the Navy, seen men like just absolutely shredded by like artillery fire. Stitch him up, put him back in the game.
No, but you know, like in the modern NBA, if you get even like a sprained ankle, they're like, take him out the game, protect the outside, like stitch.
He's playing hurt. He's playing hurt. It's like this guy's got fucking just a window.
By the way, I also just appreciate the softer things about this film too. Like again, more cliches. It's like when you're playing against like the best player, just like you got to do a really good job one-on-one on him. Like, how am I going to do that? Like, he's fucking torture my ass.
He's better than me.
And by the way, even though that's actually the one racial part of the film, by the way, it's like you don't ever get introduced really to any of the other teams. You just meet them through the playing this team. But when they play the black team, that guy may as well be Michael Jordan. He's just he's torturing him. He's fucking moves. Like,
he's really good.
Oh, he's got like it.
He's the only one that actually plays what I would consider basketball.
Sick. The rest of them are all shit. By the way, the actual basketball film in this movie is gash.
Underarm throws.
It is. The actual spot, that's why it's actually key that this film isn't about the basketball part. Like the actual basketball action, not very good. Put it this way, my analogy would be, it would be like if you actually are a really big fan of boxing, it gets really hard to go back and rewatch Rocky because like the actual boxing parts is just a guy like taking 700 straight shots to the head. Like that's listen, when you don't know boxing, you're like, this is great. When you know boxing, like, this is terrible. Like the basketball's a bit like that. It's like really
I do remember as well, like one of the things they used to say about fucking Rocky as well was, the boxing scenes are really well choreographed. You'd be dead. You would, if that was your career, you'd be dead. You would be dead. You'd be dead in your first fight. You'd be dead. Not CTE'd. Dead. No one can.
No, that's why I always love
with a massive glove.
By the way, that's how you actually know Rocky isn't about boxing, because it is about the idea like you just got too much heart. It wouldn't matter the amount of head damage you're taking, bro. You'd just be cooked at that point, you know. You'd be cooked one fight in, never mind like win the title. So I know.
But it's also as well. It's like the way that they take the blows as well. It's like there's whole scenes where it's Apollo Creed just smashing Rocky in the face,
athletic guy as
and
well.
he's just going.
It's
like, put your hands up, Rocky. I'm on Mickey's side on this one. You're a bum. You're a bum.
But by the way, to bring it back, that is what the basketball scenes are like. They are all stuff like thrown in, like, he jumps over, the guy goes under and just does that. By the way, another one, 90% of baskets made layups in this fucking game. Brilliant, Monte. No, and everyone's outside shooting, by the way, form is some actual shit from the 50s.
Not a single
this is
dunk.
You know in the modern day, Monte, everyone does Michael Jordan's like that. Every fucking thought. That's the best
what
player.
should have come up
the guy
at the
who's
end.
completely cracked out shoots like that, like.
That's what should have come up at the end. In 1954, the small town of Hickory learned how to dunk at the game.
I don't know if there even is a dunk in this movie. I'm serious.
It is a basketball movie, and there is not a single dunk in it. And also as well, when obviously you're here now, you're in the modern era. It's like when you see scorelines like they've won with an absolute deluge, 50 to 32.
Well, what I thought was funny was that some of the scores were like 70 to 65, which is like a college basketball score. There's no way a high school team is putting up 70 points.
Bro, they say at one point in this movie, they say about the black character, they go, he averages 20 points a game. Like, what the fuck? That's like half of what our entire team scores in the game. Like, we're done. It's over. We're cooked to that point.
Yeah, exactly. And now listen, I need you to mark that guy.
I know. And they make
also,
it like
as well,
really hard.
They even point out like the tallest guy on this basketball team is like 5'10".
Yeah, they say the other team has guys who are like 6'4", 6'5".
We got 6'4",
and then his coaching advice really is something like, out rebound him. They're all like 6'4". You don't just tell me to do that. Like, they're gonna get the ball, aren't they? Like, listen, they're all
what do you want me to do?
Out rebound them as well.
I can't grow 7 inches. I can't, Gene. I can't do it. So, but which is silly. It's
none
also
of which you think in the movie, though. We're just all thinking that now. We're cynical assholes reviewing it. In the moment, I was in it, mate. I was loving it. I was loving the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, just that's really good advice.
I genuinely, by the way, did enjoy this as a very wholesome film. I actually did.
No, it is.
It's great.
Beginning to end, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like again, to kind of start wrapping it up. I think there are movies like this which they're so earnest and I already mentioned it earlier. you know how like people love the Karate Kid films, and when Cobra Kai came out, even though it's a really like, you know, corny, cheesy series, whatever you want to call it, the reason
It's
it works,
supposed to be.
yeah, the reason it works is it's just earnest. It just wears its heart.
Cobra
on its
Kai's
sleeve.
great.
Yeah, like, but I mean, think about there really isn't a bad Karate Kid movie because they all essentially do the same thing, and it's just again, it's a coming of age story. It's about male bonding and mentorship, learning a skill and applying
Underdog
yourself
stories.
to something, and then you're an underdog, and by listening and following advice, you win the
Subversion
game.
of ego is a huge one in Karate Kid as well.
Yeah, exactly. All the bad guys are all fucking poisoned narcissists. Yeah, but it's like the reason people love that franchise is everything, the ingredients of this film, which is just. And by the way, they do it without really having a main character. It's a sports movie where you don't follow the life of the sports star. You're following the life of the town, and to a lesser extent, Gene Hackman's character. But like, I just love that. Like I said, I love the way this film ends. I just look. There you go. We won the game. Do we get to celebrate victory? Is anyone popping corks? Does Gene Hackman kiss the girl? Nah, there'll be none of that. It wasn't even about that.
Oh, yeah, by the way, they also don't do what would be the hackneyed part, which is they don't do the end scene. Like, you're coming back next year, right? Yeah, we're going to give you some more budget. They don't do any of that shit. Like, by the way, there's nothing more to be said. They end it actually perfectly at the high. Just leave it at that. Leave it at that, mate.
Exactly. Which, you know, I mean, put it this way. There was another sports movie we nearly picked, which was Any Given Sunday. And it does exactly that. After all of the trials and the tribulations, they win the big game, and Al Pacino gets asked, you know, are you coming back? Are you going to come back and do one more year? And he's had all the problems with the ownership, and he goes, nah, I've signed with a new franchise down in Florida or whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, I hate that. You're coming back next year.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
You're coming back, you're going to do it all over again. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't care about that. I don't want a sequel. I don't need a sequel to Hoosiers. I don't need Hoosiers 2. Electric Hoosier. I don't need that. I don't need a sequel to this. It's perfect. You know, so this was so important to include on this list for me because I think it is just the quintessential sports movie in every way, shape, or form. There's probably going to be like, there was probably movies that came out before that did this stuff. But, I mean, certainly this is the blueprint for just every sports movie, particularly, like, tales of, like, college, you know, like I said, Coach Carter, Remember the Titans.
I mean, it's just
stuff.
every other sports movie that you can think of that follows this formula came out after this one. I mean, when we were kicking, like, The Hustler is different. Obviously, The Hustler came out in the 60s. But, I mean, if you think about all of those like teenage movies in the 90s, you know, the Mighty Ducks, everything like that. All of those feel good movies from the 90s and 2000s, like The Blind Side, you know, everything is cut from the cloth of Hoosiers.
Yeah. And look, I have to say, it's one of those the rarest of days. Roger Ebert, he loved this film. He loved Hackman's performance in this film as well. I obviously had to bring Roger Ebert. This is what he wrote in this Chicago Sun-Times.
By the way, it seems like he is just a big Hackman fan, actually.
Actually, yeah, he's been with us.
You said he had night moves in his top, whatever moves, right?
He did love night moves. He did love night moves. But basically, he said, like, you know, for him, it was like one of the best modern noirs. He considered it up there with Chinatown, which of course we now know. me and Roger are out on we're like the last Japanese soldier on the island on that one, but that's fine. Anyway, he said Hackman is gifted at combining likability with complexity, two qualities that usually don't go together in the movies. He projects all of his single-mindedness of any good coach, but then he contains other dimensions, and we learn about the scandal in his past that led him to this one-horse town. The direction is good at suggesting Hackman's complexity without belaboring it. Agree with that assessment. I think it's good. Now, Siskel, who was at the Chicago Tribune and would obviously go on to become Roger Ebert's foil, he said it was sentimental and predictable. He hated it.
So
on this arc, Gene's
it is sentimental and predictable, but that's what it's supposed to be.
Works. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Is it sentimental? Yes. Is it saccharine? Yes. Is it completely predictable? Yes. Does it telegraph everything? Yes. It's not even trying not to be predictable. They may as well break the fourth wall and go, Dennis Hopper's going to get clean, his son, him and his son are going to rebuild their relationship, right? Gene Hackman's going to kiss her in a minute. It may as well be doing that the whole time, and it wouldn't make it a worse film. You're like, yeah, good. I want that. I want that to happen. Thank you, fourth wall breaking person. That's great. So, it's like I say, I mean, look, I said it at the start, I'll say it at the end. It is impossible to hate this movie. You have to be a twisted, malignant soul. Even me, poisoned by 20 years of esports straight to the brain, cannot hate this movie. I can't even hate this movie. I wish they would make Hoosiers for esports. It would make me fall in love with that fucking wretched industry again. If it was a story about a coach, it could be Duncan.
Well, luckily for you, Riot helped make Players, the mockumentary.
Well,
by the way, on the topic,
we've got to review that.
We discussed earlier as well. Another reason why I like this film and in general sports, as like we're talking like a theatre of like the human spirit and what's possible and dreaming and believing in each other and building friendship, all that jazz, overcoming failures and redeeming yourself, is actually an area I think people who don't fuck with sports will miss. Is actually what you guys were discussing earlier. This happens in esports all the time. There's a weird paradox people might not get, which is I simultaneously do what people might have seen LS did recently, which is if anyone specifically ever goes, hey, I'm like a nobody you've never heard of and I'm thinking of quitting school and my job and that to go pro, I'll always go, don't do it, you fool. You'll never make it. Like, if you're not already basically like a hair's length below being really good, you're not good enough already. So the extra time won't help you go pro. And even if you do, the greatest of all time only have a career of 10 years and, your earnings not going to be that great. You're going to have so much luck. But here's the difference. I say that because I also do believe, like this movie, like the star character, you should have to go into it knowing that, but then choose to embrace that. And if you choose that to be your journey, fine, because that's actually maybe part of your journey as a person. But I will say this part, which is the part that I do think the woman missed out on with that star character. I think people miss out on with esports. If you go the other way, though, when you do hear a story about an all-time great esports player, it happened loads in Counter-Strike, I can tell you, where they like quit school at 16 and they didn't continue on, they didn't do a job, and they haven't built like essentially like a safety net. When people go like, oh, what have they done? They've ruined their lives. I want to go. You do know this kid wasn't ever going to be the honor roll kid, right? He was never going to have the really awesome. He was going to just be an office drone. Like, by the way, that might even be good for him. He might just be the guy who stacks the beans that the office drone buys on the way home. Maybe for that guy, this was the one outlet to be legendary, to see where his human potential could go. So that's why, in some ways, like, even though I agree, the chances you make it, the woman's not wrong. Essentially, she's right in some senses. But there's an aspect which, essentially, this is the way I would summarize the movie. Sports isn't just about sports, is it? It's not really just about the idea a leather ball went through a hole and conceptually we go, that's 2 points. No, it was about like what it meant to be on the team and why are you playing and what are you fighting for and what will actually these relationships and the lessons you learn change about your life and the people around you and the impact you can have on society. And you can even throw in there the last thing, which I often have told people in the esports industry, which is when people think to themselves who work in esports, like, am I really doing anything important though? Like, shouldn't I be a doctor or something? I tell them no, because here's what you're missing. Doesn't the guy who is a doctor and a soldier and doesn't he have to have some free time and entertain himself with something to take his mind off it? You're doing that for him. You can be that escape for him, which allows him to then pursue his dream. So in some ways, I do think the greatness of this movie is it looks like a really obvious paint within the nines by numbers fucking movie that's going exactly like I say. They telegraph every single plot line, but the difference is, except for the weird romance aspect, they nail every other part of it. They stick the landing. In fact, they do it so well. I do agree. I think it has an Orson Welles effect where you're thinking, but I've seen that and thought, yeah, because it was so good in this film, someone just went, fuck, I should do that in mine, and then copied it and made it seem hacky. It isn't hacky in this. In fact, that's actually why, by the way, the ultimate irony of his fucking name is his name is Hackman, and he's one of the most fucking straight on the nose, earnest actors of all time that didn't look like he ever phoned it in. It's actually fucking ridiculously ironic.
I mean, put it this way as well, right? One of the things we've done a really good job of on this show, not by design, because that implies we think a lot more about this than we do.
I hope people don't think
do I look like I have a plan?
Anyway, you'll say this, Richard, and I'll come in with like, oh, no. I hope people know this is all off the cuff.
It was also, this was another one of the films that went into the American Film Institute vault.
Oh, that's dope.
Library of Congress.
Yeah, it should.
They said it was culturally, historically, or aesthetically
If you actually were to show
It is.
Aliens, what's a great sports movie? This would be a great pick. It has everything.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, it's every storyline you want.
The Indiana Pacers did a fucking thing where they wore the uniforms they were in the movie.
Okay.
That's
and
cool.
that was for its 30th anniversary.
Right.
You don't realize it, guys, but this film's had massive cultural impact. In fact, on the American Film Institute's list of the top 100 inspiring movies, crazy list that they just made, so, obviously whatever, but it's 13.
They rated it with the Inspirometer, of course.
Yeah, exactly. It's 13. It's up there with.
So the
Saving
inspiration
Private
levels
Ryan.
are reaching critical. They put in
Exactly.
a scene with his alcoholic father. Oh, it's back up again, sir. We're back.
It's up there with like Rocky, E.T. To
By the
Kill a
way, in that
Mockingbird.
sense, Richard, I actually think this movie is now slept on because everyone would list Rocky or the fucking whatever you call it, what's it called, Things of Glory or whatever. They would list all these films, but this film never gets a shout. Everyone thinks it is just a cliche basketball. I have to say, I went into this thinking this was going to be all right. It was way better than I remember. It was a really good film.
Yeah, it is. It's just one of the great things about filmmaking. You can do simple things, and if you do it well and you tell pure stories, you don't need to.
By the way, is there even any
don't need to
fancy camera
overdo it.
work? I don't even think I ever thought that. I'm just following the story. It's very simple, isn't it?
It's a sports movie where there's barely any sport in it. It's very even the sports.
Well, they
scenes,
jam it into some montages in like the
bro.
middle.
This is how you know it's gonna be. I timed it. The first montage happens like 15 minutes in. That's how you know you're in a great.
Oh, by the
sports
way,
movie.
love a training montage. Love a training montage, bro. Yeah.
Give me that. Because it's like, as well, it's like his first training session. And he goes, right, get the chairs out. Chairs? We're doing basketball. He's just got them dribbling around chairs. And then doing that thing you do where you run back and forth on the line, the beep test. And they're going, can we please shoot the ball? He goes, no, there'll be none of that. But you will be in the best shape of your young lives. But I'm 15, I'm already in amazing shape. Keep running. It's fucking great. Love it. So yeah, love this.
Oh yeah, by
film.
the way, also because it's set in the 50s, you get to avoid all the modern dark shit. Anyway, there's no implication one of them's on steroids or someone's got money on the game. It's totally pure in that sense. None of that exists. None of that darkness ever comes across the horizon in this film. Never.
Yeah, none of that. So just great choice. Well done, Richard. You've done it again. It's like Night Moves all over again.
This makes up for Night
Brilliant
Moves.
film.
Here's the thing, Richard. What you actually did is you showed that second chances are possible because you almost ruined the Gene Hackman arc, but you then snuck a different Gene Hackman movie, a different one, which redeems it. So again, after seeing it now, Richard, I want to correct my joke. Technically, since the Gene Hackman arc is like one and a quarter arcs, there are 4 good Gene Hackman movies in the Gene Hackman arc. There you go. There you go. You've redeemed it. Okay, well done.
See, I told you, there's levels to the game, guys.
Okay.
I'm operating on a different level. Call me Shooter Lewis. I was out here. I used to be into noir movies. It was Night Moves. It was the best one. No, you gotta get that liquor off your breath, Richard, and turn up to these shows and pick good films.
All right.
Thanks for saving me, guys.
That's enough of that. We'll see you guys next week for Field of Dreams. Till then.